about is a little bit more about text and editing text in After Effects. And I will record a lecture for you on doing more advanced techniques, and if we get to it, I'll show some of those advanced techniques in class today. Mostly about doing jittery text, and as well as like a little more editing of the text. So what we'll look at is, first off, I'm going to create a new composition, and this will all be the same, so we'll call it render or main, whatever is suiting for you. 30 frames per second, 1920 by 1080, duration of 10 seconds, because that's the minimum requirement for this assignment, and I could always add more as I see fit. So I'll hit OK. All right, and I'm not going to add audio just yet. I will in a moment. But what we're going to look at is just adding text. Okay. Looks like my little screen over here is getting a little annoying, so I'm going to right-click or and say close this panel. I don't want libraries in there. We'll make this a little bit bigger. And we're going to look under this character palette. I'm also going to get rid of info and audio and preview, because I'm doing it for myself so that you can see. You don't need to get rid of those. My screen is just so tiny that if I wanted to actually look at the character stuff, it would just be a nightmare. So now that we have this character palette open, I'm going to go to my text tool right here, and you'll notice that there's that little triangle in the bottom right hand corner there. That means that there's actually a hidden tool behind there, because by default what you have is the vertical or the horizontal text tool, but we also have a vertical type tool. I will caution you for using vertical type and typing with English or doing English language words. People tend to not read vertically for using the English language. They're going to be reading horizontally, so when you try to just you feel like you're being really graphically interesting, and you're going to be like, oh, I want to create this really interesting vertical type, it can be really difficult for people to read from a kinetics, like typography standpoint, because they don't read that way. People just don't read vertically in the English language. I know other languages, vertical is kind of how you're going to be reading, or you might read it from right to left instead of left to right. So that might be a little bit different, but that's okay for those languages because that's what people are used to. But if you're going to be writing or doing this project in English, then I would caution against doing vertical type. But if you need to have vertical type, that's where you would actually change it to. And the only difference is that when you type in letters, the only thing that would happen instead of the words going across, they're just going to go straight down. Okay? So I'm going to stick to using horizontal type, and I'll just type in my dog's name, which is Bramble. And we're going to take a quick look at working with text. So last time, I mentioned to you the website where you can download and research some free fonts, which was the 1001 Free Font website, which again sounds super shady, but it's actually pretty legit. All of these are free, but they will tell you they are free for personal use. And if you need to buy a commercial license because you're working at a company or you're doing a freelance assignment, you would need to buy the license for it to remain legal. Because a person who created it might come after you and say like, hey, I did not give you permission to use my font that I designed. But for the most part, for this assignment, all of these are okay to use because they are all free for personal use unless it says otherwise. And if you recall, I did mention how to install these, and I could just download a really quick one just for reminder's sake. Just hit download, click to open the zip, double click, and you're looking for the .ttf. And there's also a license. It might also have information on installs. So if you're installing on PC, it'll be the same. Just double click to open it. Windows and Mac will recognize that this is a font file, and it'll open up whatever text or font application. So this is Font Book, and I say install font. It'll take a moment. And this is, might not work out, but we'll see. So this is the Admiration Pains. That's the name of the font. And under here on my character palette, I can just look for it. I usually just type it in. Like once this is active, you can just kind of like click in here and say there it is. I don't know if I like that, but is it all uppercase? Can I make it lowercase? There we go. Bramble. Super neat. I kind of like that font. It's like the Ed Sheeran font-ish, kind of, because it got like feels like it's been brushed on. So that's like where you can pick your fonts. And this regular, where it says regular, remember I mentioned that certain types of fonts are going to have more than one family. So they might have an italic, they might have bold, they might have bold italic. That is not a default. Like you'll notice that there might be an option down here at the very bottom of your italic, which is called faux bold, meaning it's not like an actual part of the family. You're kind of faking the boldness, okay? And you're faking the italic. So it says faux because some of these fonts, like I think I have Helvetica on here. Oh, geez, Helvetica. Huh? Do we not have Helvetica? What? Oh, there it is. Helvetica. Helvetica is a super common kind of default font that you'll see in a lot of graphical works. It's mostly used in just print. A lot of this is super common, but it also has a lot of different options. So these are the Helvetica approved bold. This is the Helvetica bold, Helvetica oblique, light. So these other options where you could say bold, italic. This is them just making up what it might be if you were to italicize something. It's just slanting it or just making it a little bit more bold. Okay, but we can. This is why I kind of like if you can find a font family or a typeface that has more than one option, because you can at least feel like when a person is sounding a little bit more intense or a little bit smaller, you can go to the light, which would just skinny the font a little bit, or if you can be consistent within the family. You could just like pick a font and it has multiple different types in there that could give you a variety of options, so you can kind of stay consistent with a single aesthetic. Okay, but let's go back to Herculaneum. Oh God, one font. Actually, I didn't say this in my previous classes. I taught this. Don't use papyrus. Don't. If you use papyrus, I'm going to make a joke at you. And I do that to students who use papyrus, and it's just because papyrus is one of those fonts that is so overused. It became popular in like the mid to late 90s, and so now when I see, and it's just been really overused. People use it to kind of just look like, I don't know, like I see it mostly in spas where they're just trying to be like woodsy or just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's like they'll just like, oh, papyrus. Yeah.
What about Comic Sans?
Nope, no Comic Sans either. Because there's certain typefaces that are just, from the graphical standpoint, are just overused and just really not even appealing anymore. People see, like when I go to like my gym in the morning, there's this like a law firm, I think, that uses papyrus as like their actual like sign, and I'm like, oh gosh, papyrus. And that made me think of that when I look at Herculaneum. But papyrus, if you're unfamiliar, looks like that. Okay, some of you are like, oh, but that's so nice. It's like, but it's really overused. It is super overused. And so when I see it, it's like from an instant like perspective, it just makes me think you didn't look deep enough to try to like find a better font. You're just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to use this one because it kind of fits what I want to go for. I will say 100% of the time, papyrus will never be the right fit for a font. I'm just going to say that off the bat. And I'm not being mean. I'm just saying, mostly because from a graphical standpoint, when you try to apply for a job, nobody ever now is going to use papyrus. They're also not going to use Comic Sans unless they're trying to be ironic. Like, that's the only time you'll see it used, is when they're just trying to make a joke of something. And so you don't want to be that person. Okay? So that's me stating that.
What about Zap Chancery?
Which one?
Zap Chancery. Oh, it's the Microsoft cursive.
Oh, yeah. I think you said Wingdings or something, because Wingdings is totally legit to use. But it's not. I don't know, because that one I can't say is overused that much. Like, because you could say Helvetica is overused. You could say, like, what's the word? Impact is overused. There's a lot of fonts that you could say are overused. Like Arial is really overused, but it's also a really professional looking font. While like Papyrus and Comic Sans is kind of like stylized in a certain way, and so it's like a really distinctive style. Like some people could really distinctly show or say that they know the difference between Arial and Helvetica. Like when I say when I say that and you're like, I know what the differences are between those two. Good. That means you've done a little bit of like research in graphics and know the difference between those fonts. But for most of you, you're probably like, I have no idea. I have no idea what Arial is, and you just show me Helvetica, and I don't like it. So, but that's just saying like a lot of people in like the design community would be using those fonts over, or they use them too much. So Papyrus was used a lot. Don't use it again. It's kind of like don't wear bell bottoms. You know, it's like that. The bell bottoms made a comeback though in like the late '90s, early 2000s. Anyway, maybe Papyrus will make a comeback. Who knows? But this is, again, like I mentioned last class, how I tend to browse or peruse my fonts. Like, I just kind of click in here. I click in and I just hit the down arrow until I find something that's appealing to me. And the unfortunate thing is that all of these fonts, even though I input a size, which is this right here, of 218 pixels, some of them might be smaller, some of them might be bigger, some of them might be wider. So the size of each font is going to be different. And also the kerning or the spacing between each letter is going to be different because that's going to be what's defining each and every font. So the unfortunate thing when picking a font, especially Baskerville, it's also a really popular font. The unfortunate thing when it comes to fonts, and everyone's going to experience this when they go home and work on this, you might not have every font on this computer. So whatever font you choose here, you go home and work, probably not going to have the same fonts. And that's the downside. Like a Mac computer tends to have a lot more graphic design fonts than a PC will, just from the get-go. Like I think Baskerville and Helvetica are usually pre-installed on a Macintosh, but on PCs they are not. So if you're choosing to use those, just be prepared to like not have those fonts, and you might have to make another choice or only work on this project in class. That's the downside. But if you're using fonts that you've chosen, that you've downloaded, then you just have to make sure you download it at home and you're fine. Okay, but don't think that all fonts are on every computer because that is not the case. You just saw me install like 3 different fonts from like this class, last class, and this class. So different computers will have different fonts, but when I browse them, what the, like, wouldn't that be annoying? It's like, I have a set amount of space to put in some font, and then I get that. It just like, widens itself crazily. Blood Gutter 2000. Bondi, that's also a very common font. It's like from a movie that I'm remembering not well. It feels like a movie with like the guy from Notting Hill, whose name I'm forgetting.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant. It feels like a Hugh Grant movie font. Yes. Bradley Hall. Bradley Hand? Bragged. Anyway. You get to pick a font. Like I would, if you recognize a font, like from the list, I would be like, oh, probably don't use that one. Unless it's like a font you've never seen before. It has to really suit. Like you can use them, and it could be like, oh, this person sounds very kind of like super educated and smart, and like might be someone who is like, who has an English accent and just kind of immediately indicates to me that this person is just like, oh. So I'm going to use Baskerville because that feels like it's a font that would fit that type of voice that is in this audio clip that I've chosen. That's totally okay. That's kind of what I'm doing when I'm looking for font choices, is that I'm trying to find a font that matches the tone that is being said. Okay, I'm not trying to, and if I'm trying to be ironic, I'll use Papyrus, but it has to work. And Chalk Duster, cool. So again, you can. Comic Sans, there it is. Yay. So again, you can just kind of hit the down arrow to look through these. Desdemona. I don't know what's going on there. Didot. So I'll pick Didot, I guess. Even though it doesn't really suit my dog. None of these really do. My dog is pretty nuts. Nope. What the? Anyway. This is how fast I usually go through until one just speaks to me. Oh! There we go. Oh, I knew it! So I downloaded a font that was from like I did it when the Cubs won the World Series and I was teaching this class. I did like I pretty much had a Cubs themed quarter because I'm a child Cubs fan, and I downloaded their font. And the font that I choose is, of course, going to be the Cubs font because it's my favorite team. Anyway, moving on. I'll pick that one for now. Noteworthy, because that's kind of cute. But it looks like there's a light and a bold variety of this. Or not, because there's such clear differences. But you can increase and decrease the size inside of here. You can also, if I had a second line, like if I hit enter, and that's the goofy thing about using text inside of After Effects, hitting enter does not like complete what you do. It actually just creates another line. So when you're typing, how do you stop typing? Like, how stop, right? I'm done. Usually you hit enter to complete something. When I hit enter, I'm just creating, I'm creating another paragraph, essentially. So I just click off. Just click off of the layer to essentially complete typing. My other dog's name is Laserbeam. I have fun names for my dogs. So you'll notice that when I created a second line, they're now overlapping, and that's not what I want. So you can actually come right here to the next option and actually increase the spacing between the paragraph. And this is why it exists, because it'll be different for different types of fonts. Some of the fonts, it might just happen and work naturally. Others, it might not. And right here, I can add a stroke, which is just white. So I'll make the stroke, because the colors for the characters are up here. So I'll make it like red. Okay, and this is where you can increase the stroke. Okay, and you could say I want the stroke to be over the fill or the fill over the stroke. Okay, so if you feel like your stroke is getting too big, you can have the fill be on top of it so that you'll definitely always see the fill color the most. Okay, you can also artificially scale the text or widen the text. But I do want to note that these attributes inside of here do not have a stopwatch next to them. They're not keyframeable. Okay, these are static inside of here. Okay. These other ones, yes.
So you can't keyframe it so it looks like you're typing it?
We're not to that yet.
Okay.
And this is for adding an exponent. So if I wanted to essentially superscript something, I could select or highlight part of the word and superscript it a little bit. Okay. And this one is essentially just going to, it's like a knot. You're scrunching the text together. You're adjusting the spacing between the letters themselves. So I can select everything and scrunch all the words or widen them a bit. Okay. And all these options here are pretty useful to use because you can bolden them artificially, italicize them artificially, caps everything. So if you actually wanted to have all caps without actually typing in all caps, you can. There's a button for that. And if you accidentally I don't know how often I do this. I do it a ton. When I have like my first letter capitalized, I'll accidentally also have my second letter capitalized, and then the rest is lowercase. It could fix that sort of, because what it does is it capitalizes everything and then makes the rest of it look lowercase. So it's kind of Looney Tunesy right now, but it's kind of fun. And this is also superscripting and subscripting. So if you actually had a group that you wanted to like have be subscripted, so again, superscript, subscript. That's all that does. Okay, so that's the character palette. Pretty straightforward. Any questions about that? Okay, so where we're really going to get to the guts of this is going to be inside of the layer itself. Like, of course, that's where all the fun stuff's going to be. So you'll notice on this layer, we now have the transform and text. And on the text layer, or the text part of the layer, like the transform is going to look the same as it has for every other layer. But text is where the fun stuff happens. So I had a question just now about, like, how can I make it look like the word is being typed? That's what a lot of you have that question about. Like, how can you make one letter or one word appear at a time? So source text might be what you're looking for. But let's see. So we have this option here. Source text, stopwatch, sweet. Let's hit the stopwatch to set a keyframe. But notice when I set a keyframe, it made a square. Does anyone remember what squares do? Yeah. They're holes. Yes. So when you see a square keyframe, that's pretty much just a yes or a no, or a hold. So it's going to say, hold this value until you see another square. So right now it's going to hold the word laser beam until I do something else, like maybe I'll Bramble laser beam. I'll delete laser beam and just have the word Bramble. And now I get another square. Okay? So what's going to happen is that before I get to this keyframe, it'll say laser beam. And then Bramble. Okay, so those will go away. So that's not what we're looking for. We want to have it be like the letters will just kind of come out over time. So that's not quite what we want. So I'll get rid of that. But all I have in here are path options, which there's nothing, and more options, which still not a ton. So how can I make it look like it's getting typed? So do you remember on a shape layer where we had that ability to add trim path and zigzag text and replicators or the repeaters? Okay, that was through going to the add arrow. We, instead of having something that says add, have something that says animate. I'm sorry it's not super obvious that this is where you need to go to play with your text. Like After Effects likes to hide things and make things difficult for people. But under animate, we'll have a list of things or attributes that we could add. Okay? So you first need to decide, what is it that I want to do to my text? Okay? Well, I want to essentially I want to change position for my text. I want to adjust the position over time. So I'll add a positional attribute. And it's going to add several things. It's going to create an animator. And inside of that, we're going to have a range selector and the new positional attribute. So everybody is going to maybe get really confused in a second. Okay? And it's because this is really weird. Because the thing I'm going to keyframe is not actually position to move the position. Okay? What we're going to look at, and this is what I want you to pay attention to, is going to be inside of the range selector. Okay? And I want you to also take note, like when I select my animator, or I'll select position, I guess, to make this more obvious. You see at the bottom here, there's an X. So there's an X. There's like little tiny X's underneath each letter. It's like right there. It's a little baby X. There's one here. There's one there. There's one there. There's one there. It's under each letter and space. So when you add this, it's representing essentially, it's just giving you an indicator of where each letter is. Okay? And I can adjust the position. Like I can move it up or down. Just like slide it. Okay? And you notice these two little bars now that are also on the left side, outside of my words. Okay? And there's a little arrow right there pointing inward. Okay? That is the range selector. Okay? So anything inside of those bars will get this positional change. Okay? Which is why when I slide this, my entire thing moves because they are inside that range selector. But I can shift the range by using these values, the start, end, or offset values. So I could say, okay, well maybe start at, instead of 0%, which is the first letter, start at 25% and watch what happens. Notice these letters here moved back down. They went back to their original position for when the layer was created, or where I initially typed it. Okay, and I'll exaggerate this. I'll move this up a ton. Okay, so these letters are now far away. The only thing this range selector is adjusting are the things. Again, look. The bar is right here, and before the B, and after the M. So when I move or adjust the position, it is moving those parts. So how is this going to make it look like it's typed on? Well, wait a moment. we're going to make this look pretty cool. So let me make this less exaggerated. Because what you didn't notice, like I just typed in a value. I went back to 0. But what happens if I adjust offset? What does offset do? So offset can go in the positive direction or in the negative. So you'll notice again when I hover over the 0% that I get 2 arrows on either side of the finger, which should indicate to you that you can just slide it left or right. You don't have to actually type in a value. So when I slide it left and right, you see that it's subtly, or it's changing the position to -50. Once the range selector, actually it's already changed to -50 because the range is currently encompassing the whole text. But when I slide the range selector off of it, it's now gradually pushing it back to where I initially typed the word. Weird, right? Okay? Just to prove this to you, I can hide the animator and the range selector, or I could just delete it. Okay, so I see the word bramble, laser beam. That's what I initially started with. This is where it was written. Okay, I'm going to show the title safe action grid. Okay, just so you kind of have a sense of where all this is going, because I want you to be able to see that this text is shifting. This is where I initially pinpointed it, and I'm going to use my align tool. So I'll go to Window, Align, and align this with the center as best as I can. It's aligned. Okay, and again, I'll go to Animate, Position. So I'll get that animator back, and I'll adjust the position. So again, it's artificially moving it. It's offsetting it. My text is my anchor point didn't move. The text is getting slid because the range selector right here, okay, is encompassing the text. But I can slide this range selector over to have it go back to its original location. And this is why I wanted to show you this, because this is keyframeable. Okay, I could keyframe the offset value, set a keyframe, go forward in time like 1 or 2 seconds, and go up to 100%. And what will happen is my text will just kind of fall down. But some of you are like, hey, that doesn't look like it's being typed on. How can you make it look like it's being typed on? Well, I just adjusted position. What if I adjusted opacity? Because that was another option. Opacity, again, is transparency. It's on, off, right? So I could add another attribute to that animator. Okay? So I can go add property opacity. Okay? So down here I'll have opacity. And check this out. I'm going to set this to 0. So I don't see anything. It's gone. You're like, why would you set that to 0? Because it's only going to be 0. The opacity is only going to be off when the range is encompassing the word. Because when I slide the offset, or essentially when I slide this offset to 100%, I'm essentially moving the range selector away from the words. And what happens when it moves away? It goes back to its original location and original look. Okay? Because the range selector is now like right on top of itself. It's this bar right here that's just pointing. There's no words inside of it, so the only thing that is left is my original words that I wrote. Okay? So the only changes that happen are going to be when this range selector is over or is encompassing part of the word. Okay? And I could add a ton of attributes and do some fancy things with this, by the way. I could add another property, like a rotation. So I have a rotational property. I'm just going to make it go 1 revolution, or 8. I guess it's going 8 because I tried to go 1 and it just went to 8. So what's going to happen is my text is just going to spin in like crazy. And notice I didn't keyframe any of these. Okay? The only thing that's keyframed is this offset going from 0 to 100. So what happens is, like, some of you are like, well, how is it moving? Like, why is it interpolating or animating that way? So what happens is, like, when the range selector starts to move, okay, watch the little bar. It's rotating 8 times. And it goes to the next letter, okay? It's essentially just easing in, easing out to the next word. And you can actually see that animation under advanced. So it's right underneath offset. This advanced section is how it's animating. And it's a lot-ish. So it's animating based off of a percentage that it's defining. So it's like 0 to 100. And it's animating it based off of the characters. But I could say, don't include spaces, or I just want to animate, or I want to do this range based off of a word instead of each individual letter. So if I did that, I change it to words. So now, because I have 2 words, or 3 words, that is so goofy. I'm going to get rid of the rotation. 0. So now it'll go dramatic. Bramble. Yes, baby. I do speak to my dogs in that way, by the way. Okay. And I just changed it from characters to words instead of going from one to the other. You could also do it based off of lines. So since I have 2 lines here, now it'll do Bramble and Laser Beam together. Because it sees that I broke a line. I hit return. Okay? And to make this even more confusing, you might be wondering, why is when the range is like moving across letters, why is it working or going back to the original then? It's because it's in additive mode. Okay, so I could set this to subtract, which means this might help some of you. Anything outside of the range will get shifted. So now, this is my original text as I wrote it in the position that I wrote it. But as the range goes by, it'll now take it away because I changed it to subtract. So instead of the range is going by the letters, it'll go back to its original location. It starts in its original location, and then it'll shift off. I tend to like additive because that makes more sense to me. You could also adjust the overall amount that it'll change. So it could start at like 50%. So I don't tend to do that because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're going all or nothing. The smoothness, the ease high and ease low is what you're mostly interested in. So the smoothness, if I set this to 0%, there's that typing effect you're looking for. Okay, where you can type each letter. So the smoothness is what's defining how it animates. Okay, you could also, if I left this to 100%, adjust the ease high, which it's really going to be difficult for me to showcase what the ease high and ease low does because it's super subtle. It's one of those that you're going to have to just play with. But that was ease high, and I could also go the negative direction with it. And I could also ease low, which when you have a negative ease high and a positive ease low, you're kind of just having a nothing. You're kind of subtracting it out and making a smoothness of 0. Now it's like ticking a little bit. So I usually do one or the other. So this makes it a little bit harder on the ends instead of soft. Okay? You can also just leave it to 0 and allow the smoothness to kind of work overall. I tend to kind of like pick a little bit, do one or the other. Okay? But that is how it's animated. And that's it. So how is this like? Is this ever a thing that's used? You probably saw a bit of this in some of those videos we watched. But one that I could speak to is the Xbox One logo video. Anyone see it? Nope. No. Watch the NE on the one. Oh. Bloomp. Yeah, it's using that effect. It's just cascading text. Again, one more time. Bloop. It's all it is. They kept the Xbox and they had the one just do a little, it was a subtle, it was a literally opacity, position, and blur. A little bit of blur. Because you know, if you noticed, there is also under, if we were go to back to the animator and hit add property, there's a blur property. And we can just be like, oh, lots of blur. Or maybe not that much. We'll just add a little bit of blur. So what happens when you add some blur? That. I'll add a little bit more blur. I'll extend this out so we can see it a little bit more, but you can kind of see that's the blur there. Okay, so without the blur, I'll delete the blur real quick. It just looks like that. Some flavor to it by adding some blur in here. It's kind of also making it poppy. Okay. And I highly suggest that you can play with different properties. Some people like the character offset value. So this is like the matrix to me. So I'm gonna get rid of the blur and the opacity so we could see this. Both. That's what it does. It will offset your characters by whatever number you input, and it'll eventually get to yours. Once the range selector goes across your letter. So it's gonna continually like spin until the range selector crosses your letter. Okay. So I don't like using that one. Unless I have a reason to, like if I wanted to create like a hacker sort of thing. I think you guys have seen like movies where they're just like, I'm gonna hack into the mainframe, and it's just like a bunch of like spinning texts. That's that. In 5 seconds, I'm hacking into this mainframe. There's also atypical transforms. You can do fill color, so you could actually adjust color over each letter as well. The stroke color as well, tracking and line spacing you could also adjust. But again, I could keep going through all of these, or I can let you play with it. Okay. And I know for most of you, you're not, like this range selector isn't going to make much sense until you do it. Because it's a little strange, because I'm actually just animating this offset value and not these values. I'm just moving my position and my rotation, or all these values. I'm not actually animating them. You can, if you want to, but to get this to work, you don't have to. You can just rely on the offset animation or the start or end frame, depending on how you want to animate these. Is it a requirement for you to do this for this assignment? No. But for some of you, this could be what you want to do. This could be what's the real kicker to making your animation work a lot better. Okay? So, questions so far? Yes?
So when you animate, and let's say you go through that and you get to this point, and then you want to animate something else, how do you keep it from looping? And like if it had like a jiggle to it, for instance, like it all faded in and it was jiggly, and then something else happens, how do you stop it from going back and fading in and being jiggly, rotating?
I stopped the clip. I just shortened the clip. I don't want to see it again. Yeah.
Because I do that and then it loops back.
Yeah, it's because you just need more time in your animation.
Oh, okay. Is
Mhm.
that right?
Yep. So I'll go to the next example then. I'll actually bring in audio, and we'll try matching to it. Yes.
Well, how you had it spinning in.
Uh-huh.
How can you have it spin back out?
Good question. So if you want it to spin in and spin out. So I'll just make this go for 2 seconds. Let me get this spinning. So I'll just go 1 revolution. And I will add the opacity. Make that 0. Okay, and we'll hold the offset for like 2 more seconds. So I'll go to frame 4, and I'll just set a 0 key. So I'll just hit the keyframe button to add another keyframe. Then go forward 2 more seconds, and I can go in the reverse. Back to 0. So it fades in, spin, hold, come out. Make sense? Okay.
I think so.
It's recorded. Okay. So, working with audio. I think I have an audio clip without having to download one. All files. Music. Let's see. Yep. I'm going to use the one, this because this is just a happy song. And I can't actually play it and record it at the same time. That's going to be a problem. Because, just so you can experience this. Hold up. 1 second. I got to get the audio actually. So, in the audio clip, under audio, you'll see a waveform section. And this is where you can actually see where the audio starts. This is typically how I tend to pick when to key things, because I can actually see on the waveform, like if there's a pickup in the music, and you can actually sometimes pick out like bursts of things. Sometimes waveform might just be a big thing of noise, and it's just useless. But it does tell me when the audio starts, and when it'll finish, because it'll slowly fade in, and then fade out. So I can see, like, even though my clip starts here, there's still a big gap of silence. So I might want to move this over a bit, or I can just leave it. It's up to you. I'll just kind of drag my clip over and start there. And this is why I'm unfortunately may not be able to do this and record it.
Hey guys,
Just you can.
this will be the song. This is coming out May 6th.
Okay, we're gonna have to. That's fine. You're gonna hear me. You're gonna hear me echo. So I'll try and not talk while I play this, so I can keep recording. Whew, we'll see how it goes. So hold. Okay, it's right there. Sorry, it's gonna take me a moment. Sorry. All right. Okay, right there. So this is where he starts talking. So I'm just gonna kind of go to that point there. But I think I just want to do the chorus line. I think that would make the most sense for this like brief demo. So let me try and find it. Okay. That's not it. So I'm just sliding this clip over quite a bit. I'm pretty sure it's going to be where the music goes a little nuts. So it's probably going to be like right around there. So let's find out. I was right. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do this section. So I'm just going to do a little bit where he talks about having sunshine in his pocket. So let's kind of, I'm going to have to increase my composition settings, so I'm going to listen for that first. So let's first like give myself some more time, because it's 10 seconds is probably not enough. So I'll make this be about 20 seconds. I don't know why I hit cancel, but I just did. So 20 seconds and hit OK. And then scale this sucker out a bit. And let's take a quick listen.
I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet, I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh.
I'm gonna stop right there. That's all I'm gonna do. That was maybe actually 10 seconds. Whew, it was right at 10 seconds, actually. So I didn't need to go that far. So I can go back here and just say 10 seconds. Look at that. So what I'm listening for in this is I'm trying to, like, when we were looking at those previous examples, sometimes it would have things that would kind of reinforce the actual audio. It's like sunshine in my pocket. I mean, that's a big, like, visual that I could totally, like, make like some pants or just have a little pocket and a sun coming into it, and or there's like a sun and the word sunshine is in it, or I could make like the word sunshine and have like little bursts and it could be like in the shape of the sun. Like I put like a bulge effect and like it'd be round. It's like you can actually have fun with that, and it can go into a little pocket. Or it could say pocket and it just like the word pocket and then it goes beneath it and it disappears. Like it's in a pocket. You could have a lot of fun with that, right? But before I even do that, okay, I just want to get the text on the page first, okay? Because for me, I have to have something up there before I can start getting really creative with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just put up here. The first thing he says, I got that. And actually that font kind of could work. We'll see. But not this color. I'm not a fan. I'll get rid of the stroke. So, again.
I got that.
So, the word I got that stops right here. I don't want that clip anymore. It should go away. Okay, because this is when he stops saying, I got that, and now he's about to say, got that sunshine in my pocket. Okay, so how do I end this clip, or how do we quit this clip? Well, there's a couple things we can do. I could just drag from the end and cut the clip so that once it gets past this point, it's gone. Pretty straightforward. Other thing we can do that's a lot faster is if you hold the Option key and right bracket, it'll cut your clip past where your playhead is located. So Option and right bracket, or right curly bracket. Okay, it'll cut everything to the right of where this is located. And Option left curly bracket will cut everything to the left. So if I did, but I want to keep that part, so it's going to stay there. So now what I have is
I got that sunshine.
So I got that. Haha. Now I need
Sunshine in my pocket.
sunshine in my pocket now. So what I'll do is I'll just duplicate this layer, move it over, and sunshine in my pocket.
I got that sunshine in my pocket. I got that sunshine in my pocket.
Okay. Now, next part.
Got that good soul in my feet.
Good soul in my feet. Is that good? Is it soul, S-O-L-E, or S-O-U-L? Huh? Well, this is why
This is why they released the lyrics.
can't stop the feeling lyrics. Good soul, S-O-L-U-L. Okay, perfect. This is actually a lot more helpful. So I could, again, duplicate this layer. Just move this over. Double click. Got that good soul in my feet.
I got that sunshine in my pocket.
I messed up.
I got that sunshine in my pocket. Got that good soul in my feet.
And we move on. Okay? But this is still like, this is like Adele Hello that we watched earlier kind of quality. But it's still getting something up there because the next step I can do is like I can start creating emphasis, right? I can put I got that and like actually time it out. All right, let's actually try doing that, because now that we know how to do that, I can come up here and where it says I got that, I can go to text, animate, and let's put the opacity on there, right? And lower it to 0. And let's just time this out first. Let's see what that would look like. So then I'll open up the range slider and set a keyframe for offset. And I'm going to have to be quiet for a moment because I'm going to turn on the audio so I could try and time this.
I got that. I got that.
So I'm not a big fan. Ooh, and there's a little bit of a mistake, right? I'm not a big fan of it each letter sliding out. I would rather be each word. So I could go to advanced and change it from based on characters to based on words.
I got that.
Bit better, but I'm not. I kind of want it to like maybe scale up and fade in after a moment. So what I could do is also add scale. Let's see what that would look like if I was to increase it. Okay.
I got that.
I hated that. So let's try just a quick positional change. Maybe coming up.
I got that.
And I want to adjust the actual animation, so I think I might turn the ease high up.
I got that.
That totally messed up my timing, but I liked the falling a lot more. So because it messed up my timing a bit, I think, was it late or early? Let's see.
I got that.
It was late. So I need to increase the timing a bit.
I got that.
It's close.
I got that.
It's a bit better. Let's see.
I got that.
I kind of like it. Sorry. But you can kind of see this little overlapping that's happening here. I'm going to use my little zoom slider right there to zoom in a bit. And there's why. It's because the clips are kind of not correct on there. So I'll just slide that back, fix that up a little bit, and I can just scoot over and check the other one. That one looks okay. So I can continue on.
I got that. Sunshine in my pocket.
For some of these, I'm probably not going to do this exact same thing because I do have that idea of like actually making the word sunshine, putting it in a pocket, potentially doing a little bit more like I got that good soul in my feet. I'm like wanting to like make little feet and have, I don't know. I don't think that'll work. Sometimes I go too far with this. I'm just like, good. Maybe they're dancing. And they're like, oh, that's too much going on. Because sometimes it's totally fine to just say, got that good soul in my feet. But I do think this would be really nice if I made this a little bit more colorful. Or, like one of the Ed Sheeran videos, I can just put like 2 big footprints as like a background, like texture. To kind of just like have that sort of reinforcement. Or the 2 feet are there. And I could put like, got that good soul kind of in between them. And good soul in my feet and have it kind of like it emphasized. Maybe it's red. I could totally, and also it is totally not cheating to look up like feet, footprints. And just use these graphics. Like boom, graphics. But I want that. Oh, it's almost like a heart, y'all. There's lots of different shapes of feet. It's kind of. But yeah, I want something that's like really high in quality. So I'm going to go to more. No, nope. It's under settings now. Search settings. Nope. There's a one. Where is tools? There it is. It's under tools now. And I can adjust the size and say large. There we go. Those are big feet. Oh, this one's already alphaed out for me. Look at that. So, totally stealing it. And, oh, it's watermarked. Boo. Why won't you let me steal things? There we go. I can totally, this is something you can just make, but I can be lazy and don't want to. So I take other people's clip art. Don't hate. Looking for, what was the name of that? Footprints, duh. Footprint silhouette clip art. Shoot. I might need to actually. Yeah, I might need to actually like take this out. Huh?
You could change the background to white and the text to black.
I was gonna go to here and do a multiply. Is that what I wanted? Multiply? Nope. A screen then? Really? It's not gonna work, eh? Yeah, take it into Photoshop and get rid of the background. But my thought was I don't want to have like a black background, so I was going to create a new solid and maybe use like a happier or different fun color to kind of put back there. And ooh, that on white is just awful, isn't it? Can't read that at all. So I might need to maybe not be that cyan. So let's change the solid settings. And you know what would be a better color? Pink. Yeah. Nope. Oh, no, no. I tend to like things that are a little bit not that saturated. You gotta be really careful when you go to really super saturated colors because you have to kind of be very purposeful with them and your choices. And I would definitely be using, if you haven't been using Adobe Color, you might want to consider using it again because it'll really help you with get your color mixing correct. And I think this on white actually feels okay.
I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet.
And I could, again, I kind of want to get the foot sole and my feet going. I wonder why it's just not going away. Here. Why did that just all of a sudden work? That's cool. Thanks. So my thought, again, I'm just going to kind of cheat this a little. I'm going to, because I don't feel like opening up Photoshop. Again, this is my laziness coming out. Just kind of mask out one of the feet. Again, this is what happens when you're lazy. Oh, nope, nope. Okay. And I can use an effect. Color correction. Tint, I think I want. So I can map black to just a second. And duplicate this. Move it over. And let's scale it. Negative. Well, that totally didn't work. I mean, it kind of does, but... Yay. Because my thought would be to put the text inside of there. So I would have to get a little bit more fun with the actual design. So this would have to become a little smaller. So what's going to end up happening, I think, for all of you is that this is going to get really messy. You're going to have a lot of content in here that you're going to have to figure out what to do with. So pre-comping is going to become a thing you're going to probably start doing for this assignment. So I'm going to have like a lot of elements like, got that good sole in my feet, I'll have these footprints. I'm probably gonna have to break up my text into not just one text layer. So I'll probably take this and it'll be like, got that. Might just be one layer and it'll be a lot smaller. And the rest of it will be gone. And I'll put that right here. And I'll create another layer, just duplicate it, move it down. Good sole. And I kind of want this to be smaller. I think I want this to be smaller. And I keep clicking those stupid feet on accident, so I'm going to lock them. And duplicate this. And make this bigger. And bold, because, oh, it actually made it bold now. There we go. And maybe a different color. Like, not that pink, but a little bit similar family. So, and then what I could do is, I'm sorry, out of time, but so instead of that all coming up, I could start staggering this a bit. So, gotta listen. So feet is actually right here. So it looks something like that. Just need to start timing it out a lot better. And I would do the same thing. I could say like, good sole in my feet. And if you wanted to and you don't even want to use the animator to have each letter come up or word come up, you could separate them out into each layers. But what I would end up doing is that, and this is the last thing I'll show you, is because it's going to get really messy, I'll select all these layers and go to Layer, Pre-Compose, and call this like feet comp and hit OK. So that all, and that's kind of messed up my modes, but it'll be fine in here. This is why I'm going to have to take this into Photoshop. Boo, boo, boo. But I can have all of those layers inside of here. Just need to double click the layer and it's going to make it a lot easier to mess with. Okay. So I will have to kind of recess this a little. But does that make sense? Just kind of come here and be like, meh.
What's that view called again with the graphic the template line?
Oh, this is the title action safe grid.
Okay.
It's right there. Okay. So again, this is due in the next class, which is not for 2 weeks. We do not have class on Monday. I will be posting an additional video for you to kind of look at sometime later in the week. So stay tuned for that. But unfortunately, a lot of this is going to have to be done outside of class because of the holiday. So downside of a Monday, 1 day a week class being on a Monday when there's a holiday. So, but shoot me an email if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to help you.
And of course, you saved the easiest for that.